What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/entitled parents.
This story's called Relatives Invited for Dinner, Assume They're Staying the Night. My dad is the only member of my family with whom I have a close relationship, as he is the only one who accepts my choice to remain child-free and focus on my career and travel. As for my stepmom, stepbrother and his wife, uncles, aunts, and cousins, all of them have given me hell for my lifestyle. I'm now in my mid-30s, and ever since I entered my late 20s, they began badgering me to get married, preferably to a man my father chooses for me. I'm Indian, so you can imagine how this goes. I got the usual BS bingos, such as, "Who will take care of you when you're old? You're selfish for only thinking about yourself. You need to marry and breed because that's what women do." Around 4 years ago, I finally got sick and tired of them and decided to ignore their calls and texts. I've only maintained low contact with my stepbrother because he was not quite as horrid as the others. I was never close with these people to begin with, so it wasn't difficult. For a while, they took to harassing my dad to get him to get his daughter in line, but he shut them down by saying that it was my life, my decisions. At the time when this incident took place, a certain crisis had arisen in my extended family, one that directly affected my dad. I don't wish to go into details, but it compelled me to interact with these people again. So my stepmom's sister, her husband, their teenage son, along with their grown son, his wife, and their toddler came to our city to discuss matters. My dad and I decided that we can all chat at my place as it's close to the airport. So all of these folks, along with my dad, stepmom, stepbrother, and sister-in-law and their baby are at my place. We all ate dinner and talked about the issue at length. However, it was quite an ordeal for me as I had to constantly tell off the toddler, stepmom's great niece, as she kept trying to grab my cat and dogs or make loud noises at them. I asked her parents to intervene, but they just laughed it off. My pets are very well behaved but are not used to being around kids, especially if they're annoying little brats whose parents refuse to discipline them. As soon as the discussion was over, stepmom's sister asks which of the bedrooms was for them. I was caught a bit off guard and asked her what she meant. Her husband chimed in and rather demanded, that I get 2 of the bedrooms ready for their family. "We'll be spending the night here. And breakfast better be served before 8 o'clock in the morning as we don't want to miss our flight." He said this with the matter-of-factness of a seasoned parasite. This was my breaking point. Not once had I indicated that they would be staying in my house. I just offered to host them for dinner once. That's it. Even my dad was shocked. I told them very bluntly that I'm not particularly fond of their family and do not feel comfortable letting them spend the night. Also, how the heck did they get this ridiculous idea anyway? Now, my stepmom flared up. She no longer speaks to me directly, so she began asking my dad why his daughter could not put up family members in her home for one night. How can she be so selfish? My stepbrother's kids chose this exact moment to start bawling. So my sister-in-law told her to stop yelling as the baby was getting upset. "Thanks, kid." I told everyone in a firm voice that we've discussed what we were supposed to discuss, and it was time for them to leave. Stepmom and her sister walked out grumbling. Everyone else followed. The toddler's mom asked if her kid could pet my dogs. I just said no, with a straight face, which seemed to annoy her. The baby was still bawling like a champ, so no one was able to say anything else. I never even wanted these people in my home to begin with, so letting them spend the night was obviously out of the question. If they had asked beforehand and asked politely, then I would have considered it. But I refuse to be a doormat for poop shoots who can't keep their entitlement in check. This Redditor is a strong, independent woman and she needs no children. Besides, dogs and cat are quite a handful. But in all seriousness, I 100% see where she's coming from. Again, unintentionally relating to this story, brown parents can be so overbearing and so entitled, as many parents are, but still, I can really attest to this story. But yeah, good on her for standing up for herself and what she wants with her life, which can be really hard when everyone around you is like, "What? No!" This story's called The Tale of Two Kids, Two Parents, Dungeons & Dragons, and a Game Store. Long one. Prepare yourselves. Once upon a time, there is a game store. Every Wednesday, this game store hosts Adventurer League, where players looking to play D&D will get placed in one of the few existing groups consisting of a bunch of strangers. Those who are familiar with D&D would know the age-old dilemma of too many players, not enough dungeon masters. This is especially true with one certain group consisting of the Dungeon Master, the Quiet Girl, Steve the Town Guard, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, me, Good Parent and Good Kid. This group already had 7 players, a number which would make most balk, but this Dungeon Master was a trooper. Now, Good Kid is young enough that he didn't always get the nuances of playing with more mature people. Tweedledee and Dum were in middle school, but they were also mature enough to understand that playing with kids is very different from playing with adults and acted appropriately in a non-disruptive manner. Good Kid has his moments, but Good Parent was always there to rein him in and calm him. You know, like an actual parent. Good Parent would also make Good Kid read the game rules and adhere to them instead of letting him play however he wanted. You know, like an actual parent. Sometimes he would also talk to Good Kid about the do's and don'ts of role-playing and how to not annoy everyone around you. You know, like an actual parent. For months, this group was cruising along in harmony until one day when the Entitled Parent and Entitled Kid attacked. This large group of 7 players and 1 Dungeon Master was suddenly saddled with an 8th player, Entitled Kid. Entitled Kid, who has never played, is unfamiliar with the rules, and is even younger than Good Kid. "It's just for now until we can find him a better group," says the store clerk. "I mean, you have a Good Kid and Tweedledee and Tweedledum who are kids. Surely one more won't hurt." "No worries," says the Dungeon Master. "I'm fine DMing for large groups. I suppose this will be okay." "Yeah," agreed poor, naive me. "I'm always happy to introduce new players to D&D. He's a bright kid," says Entitled Parent. "He picks things up really fast. He'll learn the game and the rules in no time." And then she leaves her 7 to 8-year-old kid in a store with a bunch of strangers for 3 hours. Spoiler alert, Entitled Kid did not learn about the game and rules in no time. At the end of Entitled Kid's first session, it became painfully apparent that his age or his status of a newbie was not the issue. No, he would not sit down and listen when the group tried to explain the rules to him. He would climb on top of a stack of chairs and stand on them. He would talk non-stop about the most random things that were not D&D related and seriously distract the group, all who are trying to play. He would move miniatures around the battlefield and mess up whatever was happening in the battle. He thought his character was Thor, who could throw his battle hammer once and kill all the bad guys. Spoiler alert, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't work that way. Most egregiously of all, he would take the store's merchandise and move them around or hide it. "But OP, I hear you say. Why weren't any of you watching Entitled Kid? He's part of the group now, right?" Actually, no. It's only temporary until there's a smaller game since the group was already so large. And the group did watch him for the first 2 sessions. Coincidentally, the group did not get much playing done during those 2 sessions. Every single week, Entitled Parent would drop off Entitled Kid with us and leave to Buddha knows where. It became very apparent that she saw this group as weekly babysitting. Also, to play in the store, you'd have to pay $5 each session. This group was paying $5 each to babysit a kid who didn't know how to play, didn't want to learn how to play, and was giving them a massive migraine. Dungeon Master began complaining to the store, but since Entitled Kid hasn't done anything illegal in their eyes, Entitled Kid had placed all the merchandise back in their rightful places after Dungeon Master yelled at him and the store wasn't concerned that he might do it again. Anyways, they wouldn't kick him out. Dungeon Master requested that Entitled Kid be moved to another table, but other groups were also full, so they were stuck with him until new Dungeon Masters show up to run their games. Dungeon Master then tells Entitled Parent of Entitled Kid's behavior and requests that she teach him the rules. You see, Entitled Parent claimed that she played D&D when she was younger and she knew the rules. Perhaps she can teach Entitled Kid how to play the same way Good Parent taught Good Kid. Amazingly enough, Entitled Parent did not blow up at Dungeon Master for accusing Entitled Kid of bad behavior. She said she would talk to Entitled Kid on how to behave. Spoiler alert, she did not talk to Entitled Kid because he acted even worse than before. Okay, but how's Entitled Parent entitled? I hear you say. Yeah, expecting the group to babysit is bad, but it could be worse. Maybe she's tired. Being a mom is a thankless, constant job. It's just 3 hours a week and she hasn't done anything entitled. Well, my dear listener, who conveniently glossed over the fact that everyone paid $5 to play D&D, not to be free babysitters. Luckily, I have news for you. Dungeon Master has the phone number of every group member. In Entitled Kid's case, he has Entitled Parent's number. According to him, Entitled Parent is seeing the writing on the wall. She knows 8 players is too much for most Dungeon Masters to handle. She knows Entitled Kid is disruptive to the group and no one likes him. She also knows there's a 99.999999% chance that Entitled Kid will not stay in the group, especially when the store clerk confirmed that his placement is only temporary since day 1. Dungeon Master told us Entitled Parent had been asking him to kick someone out from the group to make room for Entitled Kid. The people whom he'd been playing with longer and whom he actually liked and formed a bond with. To her very little credit, she didn't yell and demand her way. The good news is, more Dungeon Masters came to the store looking to start a new game. Entitled Kid was immediately placed with someone who knew how to deal with kids, knew how to make Entitled Kid behave, and is infinitely more patient than the group was. The bad news is Dungeon Master had to leave for a year to do job training with the promise of returning, and I have taken over as the group's new Dungeon Master. I also have a session tomorrow and still am not completely prepared for it because I greatly procrastinated to write this story. Oh, we've all been there, you know, having something you enjoy doing being ruined by little kids. Now, okay, kids are cool and everything, but you know, there's certain things that are a lot better with, you know, people that aren't little kids, such as pretty much everything that little kids don't typically do on their own. And this is especially true with a game like D&D, which takes, I'm assuming, a lot of imagination, a lot of concentration, and, you know, you have to immerse yourself, and a little kid being there is really annoying, and I can definitely see that killing the immersion, you know, when things are getting good. If it does get good at all with the little kid there, sorry. I've had too many things ruined by kids. But again, I like kids still. This story's called, My Child Has Peanut Allergies. Remove all peanuts from this public park now. A few years ago, some friends and I went for a picnic in a public forest preserve on a summer afternoon. The covered pavilion was huge, about 60 meters by 80 meters with dozens of picnic tables and a fire pit. Dozens of different families and groups were there enjoying the day in this public area. It was nice. And then enter Karen, the entitled mother. She planted herself next to our table. All the other tables were full. She showed up with her 2 other Karen haircut friends and their squad of toddlers, apparently for entitled mother's kid's birthday party. This park has no reserved tables. It was first come, first served. Entitled mother was huffing, irritated that she and her precious squad had to sit next to a group of young people. She huffed a bit, gave dirty looks. We ignored her and unpacked our food. All was well until I opened a bag of peanuts. We were watching baseball on a laptop. You gotta have peanuts for baseball. Excuse me? Hey, are those peanuts? Yes? Do you want some? I can share. Here, take some for the kids. I was trying to be polite. She began yelling and slapped the offered bag away. No, get those away from here. Get them out right now. I was totally confused. What? Okay, you don't like peanuts. Got it. I turned away back to my friends, happy to ignore her. But, hey, didn't you hear me? My child is allergic to peanuts. They could kill her. At this point, my friends were ready to tell her off, but I'm more diplomatic. I'm sorry, I don't know you nor your child. If I did, I would not have offered you peanuts. Now that I know, I will keep my peanuts at our table away from your kid. Okay? Enjoy your party. With that polite de-escalation, I returned to my baseball game and everyone had a great day. No, of course not. Entitled mom grabs me by the shoulder. Listen, you are threatening the life of my child. You have been told that there is an allergic child in this pavilion. The law says you must remove these peanuts from the park. Now. At this point, I was in shock. A peanut law? My friend extricated me from her grasp. We can eat whatever we want. It's a public park. If you don't like what we are eating, go sit somewhere else. We have the allergies, so we have the right of way. That's the law. If you don't take those peanuts out of here, I'm calling the police. At this point, her Karens clucked in support. I told my friends to ignore her. They all started eating my peanuts loudly and defiantly. I was careful to make sure all the shells stayed in our trash bag though. I didn't actually want to hurt the kid, of course. Things quieted down, but 30 minutes later, she did it. A Forest Preserve policeman pulled up. Entitled mother accosted him. "Those people are trying to kill my child. They are throwing peanuts at our kids, knowing they are allergic to peanuts." I froze, absolutely terrified. She was a rich, middle-aged woman in fancy clothes. We were poor kids in street clothes. I feared the policeman would side with her. My friends broke out in angry protest. Luckily, the dozen other families around us were sick of entitled mothers ranting. Many other people chimed in, calling out the peanut throwing as a lie and confirming that the entitled mother was the instigator. The policeman scolded entitled mother for the frivolous 911 call. He also confirmed that there is no allergy law. If we kept our peanuts at our table, we were fine. She got off with a warning. Entitled mother and her Karens ended their party early, sending us some evil looks on the way out. We enjoyed our peanuts, beer, and baseball the rest of the day. Picnic. Cool. Park. Cool. Pavilion. Cool. Good time. Peanuts. Also cool. Baseball on a laptop? Who goes to the park to watch baseball on a laptop? What? This story's called Entitled Mom Tries to Take My Holiday Time. This story happened a couple of years ago, and while not amazing, I found it kinda satisfying. The entitled mother was a coworker and was generally really nice, though she was a gossip and crap stirrer. Anyway, she had worked at the company for a few years before I started, so she had seniority over me. We were both part-time. Anyway, the assistant manager and I became really good friends and we decided to go traveling overseas together. For whatever reason, we decided that around September was the best time for both of us to go, which happened to coincide with a 2-week school holiday in my country. We both asked our manager and head office if it would be okay for 2 people to be gone at the same time. We formally applied like 2 months before the date and were officially approved. When entitled mom found out, she was urinated. For the last 5 or so years, she had been working there and had been taking every school holiday off to be with her kids. So she assumed that we would be denied our time off because we couldn't have 3 people out of the store at once. She came up to both me and our assistant manager on separate shifts and would talk to us about our trip. She asked me what date we had picked, and when I told her, she informed me that it was really unfortunate, but that was the school holidays and she would be taking that time off to take her kids to the beach, and that she was sorry we'd have to change our plans. I can't remember what she said to our assistant manager, but I think it was similar. We were both confused and upset, thinking that something must have happened and our manager changed her mind. We obviously asked the manager and she got really angry. Our manager is a fiery Portuguese woman who everyone equal parts loves and fears. You don't mess with her. She ripped the entitled mother a new one. Told her how disrespectful she was for trying to go behind her back, that she wasn't entitled to have every school holiday off and only did because manager was kind enough to approve it, and that she wasn't the only one working there who was a mother who would have loved to have that time off to be with her kids. Entitled mother tried to argue back that her and her family had already paid for the vacation house, but manager shut her down, saying it wasn't her problem that they already rented somewhere without applying and being approved for time off. I can't recall the particulars, but I remember that with her shifts, she still would have been able to attend 4 to 5 out of the 7 days they had booked. She just would have to leave later and meet her family at the beach. Well, that wasn't good enough for her. She ended up quitting her job over it. I still saw her from time to time. It took her a couple of years to find another job, and even then I don't know how long she was there for. Okay, the entitled mom was actually 100% in the wrong. However, I do kinda see where she's coming from. Because she was used to having that time off for the past 5 years. So I don't necessarily think it was that crazy of her to assume that she could get that time off. But what she did was really shady. But again, kind of understandable given that she already paid for it, and yeah. But the correct thing to do would have been to talk to the boss.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.